Okay, I think we can all agree, number one, it's adorable, and number two, at least half the players at our gaming tables plan on adopting one. Today, we're going to talk about some of the special content for Pathfinder 2e put out by Paizo and Roll for Combat on today's episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello, travelers and tourists. My name is Mark, and I am the local disaster tour guide. That's right, I'm a storyteller that wonders if Roll for Combat should have used the fatal flaw of pedantry rather than the fatal flaw of hesitation, because, let's go ahead and admit, I get way too in the weeds on my videos. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome to my coverage of some of the free content for Pathfinder 2e that was put out as part of April Fools Day in 2025. Typically, every year, I like to cover the free content that Roll for Combat puts out as part of their Battlezoo Ancestries line. They have different products that they make available just as part of April Fool's Day every single year, and they do a good job with that content. And this year is no different. They put out Battlezoo Ancestries Demigods, but then I also realized that Paizo loves to put out April Fool's Day content as well as part of their Paizo blog. So, on today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about these different free resources that have been put out for Pathfinder 2e. I'm going to go over them briefly and talk about how you might use them at your gaming table, and then there will be some links in the video description if you want to go and check out these resources for yourself. The cool part about all of this is Paizo and Roll for Combat do this entirely for free, so anybody can go check these links out and get this content for yourself. And I think that there's actually some good stuff in both of these resources that you might be able to use at your gaming table. So I encourage you to go and check these things out and jump down to the comment section and let me know what you think about these different April Fool's Day options. Do you enjoy them, and do you intend to use them at your gaming table? Don't forget to do all the other stuff that helps to support the channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can check out my free Discord and my Patreon. All of those links will be in the video description down below. But with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So, as I mentioned today, I'm going to be covering a couple of different free resources that have been put out. One is on the Paizo blog for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and the other is a free PDF called Battlezoo Ancestries Demigods put out by Roll for Combat. Now, links to both of these will be in the video description, so you can go and check these out. There is no charge for either of them, though if you are interested in Battlezoo Ancestries Demigods, you will have to download that at the Roll for Combat website, but again, it's entirely free, there's no charge for it. This is just something that they make available to you. And in both instances, I think that there's a lot of fun stuff presented here. By the way, before we dive into this, I would like to say, typically Roll for Combat actually sends me their April Fool's Day content early and lets me review it for my channel. I did not reach out to them this year because I've been recovering from breaking my wrist, and if I'm being entirely honest, editing videos is still kind of painful for me. I may be out of my brace, but editing is a slower process, and I just didn't feel like I had enough time to do a full video prior to April Fool's Day, so I just waited for their material to come out normally, and this video will be going up sometime next week. I'm sorry that this is a little bit late, but again, these resources are freely available, and I do think they are fun, so sorry for the time delay, but I still hope you enjoy this content. First up, I want to talk about the content that was put up on the Paizo blog. every year on the Paizo blog, they do a few different small mechanical offerings that game masters and players might take advantage of in Pathfinder 2e. The first thing that they talk about, as part of a domestic wizard's guide to housekeeping, the Dust Bunny, they present a new type of creature called the Dust Bunny that you might encounter in a game, or that a wizard or witch might decide to take as a familiar. And as I noted earlier, the artwork on this is pretty cute, meaning at least half the players at my table already want one, and they haven't even seen this video yet. The premise behind the Dust Bunny is pretty simple, that during the normal course of housekeeping, wizards often resort to things like phantasmal minions to help keep their workspace reasonably clean, but as phantasmal minions are not truly intelligent creatures, they may misinterpret or overlook certain aspects of the cleaning regimen, meaning that dust may pile up in forgotten and unseen corners. As a further result, the dust may accumulate and, thanks to the ambient magic of the wizard's study, eventually become a true and living dust bunny that they might have to respond to. There are a couple of different ways that a dust bunny can make it into a Pathfinder 2e game. The first is a Dust Bunny Swarm, which is a first level creature composed of a number of different dust bunnies that could be potentially causing trouble for your players. And you can see a few thematic abilities associated with this: the cloud of allergens, the pummeling dust. You get the idea of a bunch of animated balls of dust just causing everyone to have horrible sneezing attacks. That is one possibility for using the Dust Bunny. But the other option that is presented, and the one that I definitely feel like would happen at a few tables, is the idea of a Dust Bunny familiar. One of the cool things about familiars in Pathfinder 2e is you can kind of build your own familiar based on the different abilities that you select, and there is an option inside of Pathfinder 2e called Specific Familiars, where basically you build a very specific familiar. You have to have a familiar, it has very specific abilities that you choose, but as a result of choosing those specific abilities, you get to unlock an extra effect as a result. In this case, the Dust Bunny is a construct creature with 4 required abilities: Construct, Independent, Play Dead, and Skilled in Arcana. Play Dead is a familiar ability that's found in the Lost Omens T. Shaw character guide, so you will either need that resource or need to be able to access that information online, but assuming that you build a familiar that has 4 abilities and takes those specific 4 abilities, the add-on effect that you get is called Kick Up Dust. This is a 2-action activity with the Manipulate trait, frequency once per hour. The effect: your Dust Bunny shakes and kicks to stir up dust in a 5-foot emanation. Each creature in the area must attempt a Fortitude save against the higher of your class DC or spell DC. A creature that fails its save begins sneezing uncontrollably and is slowed 1 and cannot take reactions for 1 round. On a critical failure, they are slowed 2. So, this is a very thematic ability. Obviously, a wizard's familiar is the kind of thing you don't want to put in danger too often, but I do like this as sort of a nice defensive ability if something does get close to your creature, and I think it's very thematic. So if you've ever wanted your own Dust Bunny familiar, the rules for making that can be found on Paizo's blog. The other interesting thing that dropped as part of the April Fool's Day blog from Paizo is the Venture Gossip Archetype. Now, archetypes are one of the best aspects of Pathfinder 2e overall. Just the way archetypes are infused into the game. Chef's kiss, absolutely fantastic mechanical aspect of how the game is played. The Venture Gossip archetype is essentially an expansion on the Pathfinder Agent archetype. So, if you want to use the Venture Gossip, you have to be playing a character who already has the Pathfinder Agent dedication, and then they can take the Venture Gossip dedication that we'll talk about in a moment at level 4, and they can kind of further specialize their Pathfinder Agent in the area of being a Venture Gossip. So, what is a Venture Gossip? Well, The Venture Gossip is the name of a famous agent in the Pathfinder Society, but also the name of a famous tabloid newspaper run by the Pathfinder Society. The idea here being that the Venture Gossip is a Pathfinder agent who specializes in finding all sorts of interesting, exciting, and noteworthy news stories to pass around as gossip throughout the community. If you've ever wanted to play a character who was an expert at digging into other people's business and sharing all the crazy tabloid news stories, this is the archetype for you. As I mentioned earlier, this archetype is structured as an expansion of an existing archetype, so if you do want to use the Venture Gossip archetype, you do have to be playing a Pathfinder agent, but that should be pretty easy to do. I think most storytellers would be okay with that. And then, starting at level 4, you can take the Venture Gossip dedication and gain a special action called Tell Me More. This is a 2-action activity with the Fortune trait. It targets one creature that shares a language that you speak, and there is a requirement that you are not in combat. The effect is just batting your eyes and giving someone a familiar nudge can get them talking. Ready to spill the beans about everything and everyone around them, you roll twice on all rolls to influence the target and use the better result. Essentially, this is a special action that allows you to dig for information a little bit better. However, there is an important aspect of the Venture Gossip dedication that I feel we need to go over. You see, the exact identity of the Venture Gossip is not truly known. And as a result, you have 2 identities. Your day job as a Pathfinder agent and your real job, one of the many voices that makes up the Venture Gossip tabloid. If someone attempts to figure out that you're actually a Venture Gossip, they must use a Seek action to attempt a perception check against one of your influence skills of your choice, Deception, Diplomacy, or Intimidation, and the DC is 20 plus your proficiency modifier in the chosen skill. Essentially, you're really good at covering your tracks, so people don't know who the source of all of this exciting gossip actually is. Essentially, this is a fun and somewhat humorous take on what might normally be considered a spy-style archetype. Now, we're not going to go into everything that the Venture Gossip does, but when you scroll through, you can see a few different feats, a few different options that are available. I really like the "Hey, over here" reaction, where you can help one of your allies on a saving throw versus an auditory effect, and one of my favorite Venture Gossip feats, which is "A Little Bird Told Me," where you literally turn into a small bird so that you can go around and snoop on people. All things being told, I think the Venture Gossip is a fantastic blend of humor and mechanics, and I could see someone having quite a bit of fun with this particular archetype. Now, I will go ahead and tell you that there is some other content in the Paizo blog. One is the RT5RRMN, which is apparently a monster generated entirely by the author's cat walking across a keyboard. I'll leave that one for the Game Masters to look at and maybe have some fun with. But all told, I have to say that the Venture Gossip and the Dust Bunny are the standout offerings in this year's April Fool's Day blog. This, of course, is going to bring us over to Roll for Combat, which every year on April Fool's Day releases a free PDF of some kind of crazy off-the-wall Ancestry option that you can use in a Pathfinder 2e game, and this year's kind of interesting because they went a little more serious, and I've got to say I think there's some fun story potential here. Battlezoo Ancestries Demigods is written by Mark Seifter, and they're using it as a way of advertising the Battlezoo Ancestries Living Legends. I do recommend checking that out as well. This is a way of presenting a demigod character as something that you could play in a Pathfinder 2e game. Now, I'm not going to go through everything in this PDF because honestly this PDF is pretty involved and pretty long. But before we look at the Ancestry itself, I do want to show you an important aspect of this PDF that you will want to keep in mind. That is demigod religions. You see, as you are playing a demigod, one aspect of the character is that you may gather worshippers over the course of play. And they have a pretty serious discussion of what this looks like and what this means mechanically inside of Pathfinder 2e. Now, there are options to consider. There's the no religion option, if that's not necessarily something that your character even wants to pursue, or the religion in the background option, where essentially the religion stuff is playing out behind the scenes but doesn't affect normal gameplay. But then there's also full religion rules, where as your character slowly grows in power, you gain more and more people who are worshiping your character and beginning to believe in them. And they actually have full rules for building a religion. You'll start with a selection of initial boons, which is basically like the deity stat block for someone who wants to follow a religion. So, domains, sacred animals, favored weapons, edicts, anathemas, sacred colors, things like that. And then you'll figure out a primary virtue for your religion. They have a few different sample ones that you can use here. They have compassion, courage, innovation, sagacity, and trickery, all as options that you might take. But as part of building a demigod character, they present full rules for developing a religion that might develop around your character. And again, I don't want to dig into everything that is in this PDF, but essentially the way they structure the benefits of your character's religion is they balance it around the free archetype mode of play for Pathfinder 2e. Functionally, as your religion gets stronger, you will develop a certain amount of boons associated with your religion, and those boons are keyed to the typical power level of a character who is participating in the free archetype variant. So, if you are playing a demigod character, and your game master wants to make sure that that character isn't overshadowing others at the gaming table, essentially what they can do is they can let other PCs have a free archetype and then let you have the religion benefits, and those should be roughly equivalent and reasonably balanced in overall power level. I like the fact that Mark Seifter thought through how to do this in a way where you can have a demigod and their fledgling religion incorporated into a game and it not necessarily be game breaking. Also, this is a small note, but if you are playing a Titan character from the appropriate Roll for Combat PDF product, Titans can often get their own cults and own followers that can be very similar to the rules as expressed in the Building a Religion section. So if you happen to be playing a Titan, these rules might be something that you could bust out as well. Just wanted to point that out in case you were interested. But having said all that, let's get into the actual effects of playing a demigod and what that means mechanically according to this PDF. The introduction to this section is going to follow the typical introduction to an Ancestry. You get a discussion of what a demigod is and how they compare to other divinities. You get some descriptions of what you might strive to do, what others probably think about you. You get a discussion of the physical description of a demigod, what your character potentially looks like. And then a session on society, how demigods relate to society, some popular edicts and anathema that demigods might use, a discussion of names and some sample names. And then you'll move on to the demigod heritages and the different mechanical effects associated with this particular ancestry. So let's take a look at those now. Over here on the sidebar, you can see an outline of the effects of the demigod ancestry. Rarity is rare. In other words, you need specific game master permission to play this. Base hit points is 8. Size, we're going to read about that here in a moment, with a base speed of 25 feet. And then for ability boosts, you have charisma and 2 free ability boosts. Below that, you have an ability flaw. And for the ability flaw, we're going to be reading here in a moment something called the fatal flaw. And the fatal flaw is ultimately going to determine what our ability flaw is when we're developing our character. As for languages, your initial languages are going to be based off your mortal ancestry. We'll talk about that more in a second. And you'll receive additional languages equal to your intelligence modifier if positive. And if your mortal ancestry would usually receive another language, add 1 to that total. In addition to that, when you are choosing your languages, you'll use the languages available to your mortal ancestry, But you can also choose one language that is appropriate to your faith, such as Empyrean, Chthonian, Daemonic, something like that, which ultimately reflects your demigod nature. As for traits, you will have the demigod trait, as well as the traits from the ancestry that you chose in the part mortal ability. You'll also have low light vision. The next thing that is discussed is fatal flaw, but I want to go ahead and jump past that for just a second and take a look at part mortal and quasi-divine. Part mortal says, you are part mortal and part deity, and you might have been originally born fully mortal. Choose a mortal ancestry. Your size matches the mortal ancestry size. In addition to your demigod trait, you gain the traits matching your chosen mortal ancestry. You start with the same languages as members of that ancestry, and your available bonus languages are the same as that ancestry, including an additional bonus language if that ancestry normally grants one. You still aren't quite a member of your mortal ancestry even if you were born as one, so you can't take feats for members of that ancestry unless you take the Mortal Roots feat. So basically, your physical appearance is that of a mortal ancestry of your choice. You have the traits of the mortal ancestry of your choice. Your languages are based on that. But you can't actually take ancestry feats from that ancestry unless you take another feat first, which is called Mortal Roots. That is a 5th level demigod ancestry feat that allows you to unlock some of the mortal abilities that you would have inherited from that part of yourself. You also gain an ability called Quasi-Divine. You might not be a full deity, but you're still a demigod, so you have a bit of divinity that grows stronger as you do and increases as faith in you rises. Each day, choose one cantrip from the divine spell list, and you can cast that cantrip as a divine innate spell. Your spellcasting attribute for your demigod innate spells and boon spells is your choice of intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. You also start gaining the ability to grant spells to your worshippers. See page 11 for more information about your religion. We're not going into the full religion rules here. Essentially, the summary of the religion rules: people that worship you as a demigod can gain access to divine magic, and they can gain access to spells up to 1/2 your character level, meaning that at first level you can grant first level options, but when you get up to 20th level, you could potentially pass out 10th level spells to your worshippers. There's obviously a lot more involved in building your own religion, but Quasi-Divine says you can pass out benefits to those who believe in you. Now let's back up a bit and talk about the fatal flaw. You see, while you have some amount of divinity and the combination of divine and mortal grants you great power and potential, you also possess a fatal flaw. This is going to determine your attribute flaw. Each demigod heritage has one or more fatal flaws available, and if you didn't choose one of the demigod heritages, so if you picked a versatile heritage, you must take the hesitation flaw. There are 3 flaws listed here: hesitation, hubris, and vulnerability. Hesitation says that your mind struggles to see through all of the possibilities, or struggles to coordinate between the mortal and divine halves of your being, and as a result, your body and mind often operate at different speeds, resulting in a flaw to dexterity. Hubris says that as a demigod, you are more than a mere mortal, and your divinity allows you to gain worshippers, build up a religion, and even grant spells. You're amazing. Unfortunately, your pride can cause you to make some dangerous mistakes, and as a result, you can have an attribute flaw in wisdom. Finally, you have the option of vulnerability. While you possess the limitless potential of the immortal, ultimately your mortality mixes in a fatal vulnerability that pretends you're undoing someday. Whether that's a certain spot in your body that's more vulnerable, or a particular substance that can slay you, the end result is you're just a little less sturdy, and you gain an attribute flaw in Constitution. I have to say, I love the writing here, and I love the throwbacks to a lot of famous demigod characters in mythology, so I love that there are some different options for your fatal flaw. As they note here, based on the heritage you go with, that is ultimately going to determine which fatal flaw you have. So ultimately you may end up with a fatal flaw in dexterity, wisdom, or constitution, but it's going to kind of depend on the specifics of your divine nature that cause that flaw to manifest. Speaking of those specifics, let's talk really quick about the different heritage options available. There are 5 that are presented in this PDF. The Genius Demigod, the Savior Demigod, the Seer Demigod, the Trickster Demigod, and the Warrior Demigod. Okay, so up first we have the Genius Demigod, reflecting a divine heritage related to brilliance, imagination, ingenuity, and essentially mental pursuits. The effects of this: you are trained in your choice of arcana, crafting, occultism, or society, and if you are somehow already trained in all of those, you get to choose another skill of your choice. Additionally, due to your genius, you know just about all of the basics of any topic you bother to study. Before your GM rolls a secret check for you to recall knowledge, you can tell them that you'd like to use your genius. If you do, and if the results of the assurance skill feat would be a success, you gain that result instead of rolling. If there would be a failure, your GM rolls the secret check as normal instead. This does not, however, actually give you the assurance skill feat. Your genius, it notes, can be used for any skill with which you are trained, and you can choose between the fatal flaws of hesitation, hubris, or vulnerability. All 3 of those are potentially appropriate, so this is a very knowledge-oriented heritage for a demigod. Next up, you have the Savior Demigod. This represents patience, benevolence, empathy, and your offer of kindness and succor to all of those who are around you. You overflow with the virtue of compassion. Mechanically, you're trained in the medicine skill, or if you were already trained in medicine, you gain another skill of your choice, and you gain the battle medicine skill feat. You also gain a +1 status bonus to the hit points healed when you use battle medicine or treat wounds. This bonus also applies to the initial healing from any healing spell, though it should be noted that this bonus only applies once per creature per spell, even if the spell would heal multiple times. Again, for the Savior Demigod, you can have hesitation, hubris, or vulnerability as your fatal flaw. Next up, we have the Seer Demigod. This is associated with wisdom, insight, and understanding, and you are associated with helping people make good choices, resolving conflicts, and even understanding the future as far as that may be allowed. You overflow with the virtue of sagacity. You gain dark vision, allowing you to see in darkness and dim light just as well as you could see in bright light, and your vision in darkness is full color, not just black and white. As for your fatal flaw, you can choose hesitation or vulnerability. Up next, we have the Trickster Demigod, associated with cunning, cleverness, and being mischievous. You are quite likely to be labeled as a trickster or a scoundrel, possibly even before you knew you were a demigod. You overflow with the virtue of trickery, and you choose whether you have a way with words or sticky fingers. If you choose a way with words, you become trained in deception and gain the charming liar and lie to me skill feats. If you choose sticky fingers, you're trained in thievery and gain the dirty trick and pickpocket skill feats. Per normal, if you were already trained in the chosen skill, then you are trained in another skill of your choice instead. As for fatal flaw, you can choose either hubris or vulnerability. Last up, we have the Warrior Demigod. You're associated with bravery, might, skill at arms, and you are the sort who is going to fight through a situation even if it seems impossible. You overflow with the virtue of courage. Your hit points from your Demigod Ancestry increase from 8 to 10, and you gain your choice of either Favored Weapon Familiarity or the Toughness General Feat. And we'll look at Favored Weapon Familiarity here in a moment, but those are the different heritage choices that you can take for your Demigod: Genius, Savior, Seer, Trickster, or Warrior. And as noted, you can also use versatile heritages. If you do use a versatile heritage, you will automatically have the hesitation fatal flaw as a result. Next up, I want to take a look at just the first level Demigod Ancestry feat options. They have options all the way up to level 17, but I'm not going over all of those in this video. We're just going to take a look at some of the first level options so you get a taste of what is available in this PDF. Several of the options presented in this PDF are going to reflect your demigod's religion that you developed. And like I said, we haven't dived into the full religion rules in this video, but essentially, a lot of these feats are going to build off the religion that you create for your demigod. However, there are notes that if for some reason you're not playing very heavily into the religion, you will still pick those items for the religion for purposes of the feat, but that doesn't mean that the other mechanical effects of having a demigod religion are in play. So, long story short, if you're looking at these Ancestry feats and you don't care about the demigod religion, you might still pick the items from the religion, but only what you need to make the feats function. The rest of the implications of your demigod religion, not an issue. Alright, first up we have demigod lore. You are trained in religion and your divine skill, and you gain the additional lore feat for demigod lore. This is the typical Ancestry lore feat that we see all the time. Next up, we have Draw Upon Domain. Choose a domain that you can grant to your followers. You can cast the first rank domain spell granted by that domain once per day as a divine innate spell. So this is essentially an Ancestry feat that gives you access to a domain spell, but do note, when you do, it is an innate spell, not a focus spell. So there's a little give and take here. You can gain access to a domain, you can use the ability, but you can only use the ability once per day. Next up, we have Favored Weapon Familiarity. You've always felt a connection to a specific weapon, and that's why you chose it as your religion's favorite weapon. If your favored weapon is an advanced weapon, you treat it as a martial weapon for purposes of proficiency. If your favored weapon is a martial weapon, you treat it as a simple weapon for purpose of proficiency. And if your favored weapon is a simple weapon, increase the damage die by 1 step. If your favored weapon is an unarmed attack with a damage dice lower than a d6, you can increase it by 1 step as well. Next up, we have the feat Orisons of Power. You can draw upon more divine cantrips than a normal demigod. Each day, choose 2 divine cantrips instead of 1 that you can cast as divine innate spells. Then we have Sacred Animal Affinity. You can communicate with your sacred animals, and you get along especially well with animals of that kind. You can speak to and understand your sacred animal and very similar animals, and it gives an example of a particular demigod who is associated with a certain type of bat, and therefore they can speak to all bats. You can use the diplomacy skill with your sacred animal, and you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to make an impression or request. And in most cases, your sacred animal starts as friendly to you even before you make an impression, as they sense your connection and instinctively like you. For a lot of my players, I think they would love this feat just because animals automatically like them. That sounds like something my players would love. Our last first level option is called Sacred Animal Form, which allows you to turn into your sacred animal. So again, you pick a sacred animal, and then you can turn into that animal as if you were using the Pest Form spell, with the very important distinction that the size of your Pest Form spell is going to adapt to whatever the size of your creature would be. So if it's a tiny animal, then Sacred Animal Form would turn you tiny size. If it's a small or medium animal, you'd get small or medium instead. Additionally, when you take on your Sacred Animal Form, there is something unique to that form that shines through every time, helping people understand that they're looking at something that's not necessarily a normal animal. So that's just a quick look at the first level Ancestry feats. Obviously, there's a lot of higher level options, and you can get into some really very entertaining just options that Mark, Seifter, and Roll for Combat have put out there. Resisting the urge to sing for some reason right now. But obviously there is a lot of content in this PDF that you can go and check out, and like I already mentioned, this is available for free over on Roll for Combat's website, so link down in the video description, you can go check this out if this is something that you might be interested in. And I haven't dived into this, but I do like the idea of mixing the demigod ancestry with the exemplar class. If you just really want to lean into the more than mortal style character, I think that could be a lot of fun. So anyways, that's all I've got for today's video, and the time has come to turn this conversation over to you. What are your thoughts about the different April Fool's Day options that Paizo and Roll for Combat gave us this year? And would you be interested in using Dust Bunnies, Venture Gossip Columnists, or Demigods at your gaming table? Jump down to the comment section and let me know your thoughts and ideas. Don't forget to do all that other stuff that helps to support the channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can check out my free Discord, my Patreon. All of those links will be in the video description. But as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Have a wonderful day.